Swala, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk with ChatGPT on another interesting topic. The name of the topic is what if cars could fly in the future? So let's talk with ChatGPT on this amazing topic and ask him some interesting questions about it and get to know some knowledge about it. Hi ChatGPT, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, thank you. How about you? Everything going all right on your end?
Yeah, it's going right on our end. So today I'm here to have another conversation with you on the topic what if cars could fly in the future?
Ooh, that's a really fun topic. There's so much to unpack from the tech side, like how infrastructure work, to the social side, like how it might change cities or traffic patterns. What aspect are you most curious about?
Uh, I want you to first of all tell our viewers what are flying cars.
Absolutely. So, flying cars are basically vehicles designed to travel both on the ground and in the air. They often have features similar to cars, like wheels and steering, combined with something like vertical takeoff or small wings for flight. A lot of prototypes are in development, and the idea is that in the future they could reduce traffic, give us new ways to commute, and kind of reshape how we move around.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so tell me, are flying cars possible in the future?
Yeah, they're definitely possible. And in fact, some companies are already testing prototypes. We've got electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or EVTOLs, that can lift off from small pads. And a few startups are even aiming for urban air taxi services. So while we're not fully there yet, the tech is moving fast, and a lot of experts think we'll see them in some form within the next couple of decades.
Okay, so how would flying car work?
Great question. So, flying cars would basically work by combining traditional car mechanics, like a chassis, wheels, and steering, with flight tech, like small propellers, wings, or even jet engines. They often have automated systems, kind of like autopilot, so the car can take off, navigate, and land. The trick is balancing safety, battery or fuel efficiency, and ease of use. But that's the basic idea.
Okay, so what technology would power flying cars?
Yeah, so a few different technologies are on the table. Most of the prototypes so far are using electric propulsion, like battery powered motors, because they're cleaner and more efficient. Some concepts are also looking at hybrid systems, combining batteries with small jet or rotor engines. And of course, a lot of them rely on advanced sensors and AI to help them navigate safely in the air and avoid collisions.
Okay, so how would air traffic, how flying cars reduce traffic jams?
Yeah, that's a big potential benefit. So, if flying cars become common, some of the congestion we have on roads, especially in crowded cities, could shift to the air. Instead of everyone being stuck in a traffic jam, you could have designated aerial lanes. Of course, that would mean a whole new air traffic management system, but if done right, it could really ease ground level congestion and cut down commute times.
Okay, so how can we control air traffic?
Ah, that's a huge challenge, right? So we'd need a really advanced air traffic control system, something that uses AI, just like modern air traffic control, but scaled up. Drones, sensors, and real-time communication would all help. Vehicles would have to be connected, so they'd share data on their location, speed, and altitude, and all of that would be monitored from a central hub. It's like a whole next level air traffic system.
Okay, and would flying cars be expensive? Expensive?
Yeah, at least initially they probably would be. Right now, a lot of the prototypes are super high tech, so the materials, sensors, and motors make them pricey. But over time, if the technology scales up, production costs come down, and you might see them become more affordable. Just like how early smartphones were super expensive, but got cheaper later on.
Okay, so uh, how can we know that how can we know that the safety system would they need?
Ah, that's super important. So, to make sure safety systems are up to snuff, they need rigorous testing, both simulators and real world conditions. Regulators like aviation authorities would set strict standards, things like collision avoidance, emergency landing protocols, and redundancy, like backup systems. So, it's a combination of tech development, real life flight data, and official certification processes.
Okay, nice to hear that. And okay, so tell me that what do you think would be the starting price of an flying? car?
Sure. So the starting price for a real road ready flying car is around $190,000 for entry level models. More advanced models typically range from about 300,000 up to over $1 million. For example, Aleph Aeronautics Model A is about $299,999, while Klein Vision's Air Car is estimated at $800,000 to $1 million. So overall, they're still pretty pricey.
Okay. And could flying cars reduce travel time?
Yeah, definitely. If flying cars become common, they could really slash commute times, especially in crowded cities. You could bypass like ground traffic and go in a straight line. Of course, it depends on how well the air routes are organized, but the potential is definitely there.
Okay, nice to know that. Okay, so how would cities adapt to flying vehicles?
Yeah, that's a great point. Cities would have to rework a lot of their infrastructure. They'd need designated vertiports, basically takeoff and landing zones spread out across the city. Roads might get repurposed or redesigned, and zoning laws would have to change. Plus, they'd have to ensure safety, like there's no risk of mid-air collisions or accident over densely populated areas. It would be a big logistical shift.
Okay, so tell us that how would flying cars be environmentally friendly?
Yeah, that's the big plus if done right. Many flying car designs are electric, so they produce less emissions than traditional combustion engines. Plus, they could reduce traffic jams, meaning less idling and fewer overall emissions. Of course, it depends on the energy source. If they're powered by clean electricity, they could be a lot greener than we think.
Okay, so the flying cars will be a danger for birds?
Yeah, that's a real concern. With more vehicles in the air, there could be risks like mid-air collisions or just general unpredictability. So safety would be key. We'd need strict pilot training, automated systems, and a lot of oversight. So it's definitely something we'd have to plan for to avoid making things more dangerous.
Okay, so what challenges exist in building flying cars?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of hurdles. First, the tech is still maturing, things like battery life, weight, and reliability. Then there's regulatory approval. Getting flying cars certified for public use takes a ton of time. Infrastructure is another big one. Like I said, we'd need new air routes and landing pads. And finally, cost. Developing and scaling this tech is really expensive. So it's a mix of technical, regulatory, and economic challenges all at once.
Hmm. And how much if we charge the flying car once? How much we can travel?
Ah, good question. So it really depends on the model and how far it can go on a single charge or tank of fuel. Some prototypes right now have ranges of maybe 100 to 200 miles, but with better battery tech, that could improve a lot. So once the tech matures, you might see them as commuter tools, able to travel between suburbs and city centers. But right now, it's still evolving.
Okay, so would everyone be able to own one flying car?
Yeah, that's a big hurdle, honestly. At least at first, flying cars will probably be a luxury, like early airplanes or even high fashion cars today. Over time, if the technology scales and mass production kicks in, costs could drop. But in the near term, it's likely to be an exclusive experience for a while.
Hmm. Okay, so tell
Yeah,
me that how would accidents be prevented?
yeah. So preventing accidents would rely a lot on automation and AI. Flying cars would need advanced sensors, kind of like self driving cars do now, to detect other vehicles, obstacles, and even changing weather. They'd also have to follow strict air traffic control rules, so flight paths, altitude, and speed would all be monitored in real time. Plus, pilots or the automated systems would have to be constantly communicating with each other to avoid any mishaps.
Hmm. Okay, so could flying taxis become common?
Yeah, they really could. In fact, some companies are already testing air taxi services in certain cities. If everything goes smoothly, regulation, cost, infrastructure, they could become a practical way to zip around urban areas. It'll still take some time, but the idea is really taking off.
Okay, what are some companies that are developing flying cars?
Several companies are actively developing flying cars. Joby Aviation in California is building a five-seater electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft with a top speed of 200 miles per hour and a range of about 150 miles. Aleph Aeronautics is a U.S. startup aiming for a street-legal flying car with vertical takeoff. Aeromobile in Slovakia is designing a hybrid vehicle that works both as a car and a plane. And Wisk Aero, a Boeing subsidiary, is developing autonomous eVTOL aircraft for on-demand air mobility.
Okay, so would flying cars replace airplanes?
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. I think flying cars would more likely complement airplanes rather than fully replace them. Airplanes are still the best for long distances, international flights, and heavy cargo. But flying cars could handle shorter urban or regional trips, so they might redefine regional how we get around in cities, but not completely replace planes.
Okay, so would flying cars reduce pollution?
Yeah, they potentially could, especially if they're electric. Since they wouldn't need to sit in traffic, they could reduce overall idling and stop and go emissions. Of course, it depends on how the electricity is produced. If it's from clean energy, it could really lower pollution. But if it stays fossil fuel based, it might not be as big of a help.
Okay, so how would the government regulate them?
Yeah, so governments would have to create new regulations specifically for air mobility. That would mean setting up licenses for operators, defining flight corridors, and enforcing safety standards. Existing aviation bodies like the FAA in the US would probably lead the charge, but cities and countries would also need to set rules for takeoff, landing, and noise restrictions.
Okay, so how would parking work for flying vehicles?
Ah, good question. So you'd need specialized parking structures, kind of like mini airports or vertiports, where flying cars could land, charge, and be secured. These would be multi-level. Some could be rooftop pads, and some would be standalone facilities. Plus, you'd have to coordinate arrivals and departures, kind of like a mini airport, but for personal vehicles.
And can we make it like we can drive it on the road and also it can be a flying car both in one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea behind a lot of these designs. They're often called roadable aircraft, so you can drive them like a regular car. And then when you reach a designated area, like a takeoff pad, you can unfold wings or activate rotors and take off. It's a bit like a hybrid between a car and a plane, so it gives you the fast of both worlds.
Okay, so could flying cars transform tourism?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine if you could easily fly between tourist spots, like zip from one island to another or reach remote landmarks in minutes. It could open up whole new tourism markets. People might visit places they'd never considered before. Of course, it would depend on affordability and infrastructure, but it could be a game changer.
Okay, and what training would drivers need?
Yeah, so drivers would need some pretty specialized training. They'd have to get a license, kind of like a pilot's license, so they'd learn about flight rules, airspace, emergency procedures, and how to handle both driving and flying modes. Plus, there'd be ongoing safety refreshers, so it would be a big step up from regular car driving.
Okay, how would emergency services use flying cars?
Oh, that's a great idea. Flying cars could really boost emergency services like air ambulances or fire and rescue. They could bypass traffic, get to remote areas faster, and bring critical supplies quickly. Of course, they'd need special coordination, maybe with dedicated air routes, but they could really revolutionize emergency response.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and would flying cars create new jobs? Tell us in detail.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first, you'd have a whole industry around manufacturing these vehicles: engineers, designers, battery tech experts, and assembly workers. Then you'd need pilots or operators trained to fly them, plus air traffic controllers to manage routes. There'd also be a need for maintenance teams, safety inspectors, and even new urban planners to figure out how to integrate flying car hubs into cities. So it's really a whole ecosystem of new jobs.
Okay, what materials would be used to build a flying car?
Yeah, so a lot of them would probably rely on lightweight, strong materials like carbon fiber or aluminum alloys to keep the weight down but still maintain strength. You'd also have advanced composites, maybe some titanium parts for the structure, and of course, high tech electronics, sensors, batteries, and avionics. So it's a balance of durability and lightness to keep them efficient.
Okay, ChatGPT. Okay, so could the drones influence flying car technology?
Oh, for sure. Drones are actually a huge inspiration for flying car tech. They've already proven that you can have stable vertical takeoff and landing, and they use a lot of sensors, AI, and autonomous flight systems. So, a lot of the innovations in drone stability, obstacle avoidance, and battery efficiency are being adapted to flying cars, which is pretty exciting.
Okay, and what do you think? How would the flying cars will look like in design and style wise?
Ooh, that's fun to think about. I bet they'll have a really sleek, futuristic design, kind of like a sports car merged with a small aircraft. You'll probably see smooth lines, compact proportions, and maybe some foldable wings or retractable parts. And they'll likely use a lot of glass, maybe a panoramic cockpit, so it feels really open and high tech.
Okay, so how we can make a flying car tell us stepwise and with full details all the things we will need in it.
Sure. So, step one would be concept design. You'd sketch out what you want the car to look like and what features it needs. Step two is engineering. Work with aerospace engineers to design a lightweight structure, select materials, and ensure it can handle both driving and flying. Step three would be prototyping. You build a full scale model, test it, and refine aerodynamics and power systems. Step four is safety. You'd run it through rigorous flight and crash tests, get certifications from aviation authorities. Develop AI and navigation systems for autonomous flight, collision avoidance, and route planning. Step six is production. Once the prototype is validated, you scale up, set up factories, and start manufacturing. And finally, step seven is rollout. Work with regulators, launch in selected markets, and scale as you get more feedback.
Okay, and
Yeah,
what year might flying cars become very common?
flying cars are getting closer, but they won't be common immediately. A pilot program in the US for low altitude electric air vehicles starts in June 2026, and some air taxi services could appear in Orlando by 2028 and in China by 2030. Analysts estimate about 10,000 flying cars by 2030, but widespread adoption might not happen until the 2040s.
Okay, and can you tell us how would flying cars change city design?
Yeah, absolutely. So cities would shift to have dedicated vertiports, places where cars take off and land, probably on rooftops or in special hubs. Roads might get repurposed with fewer lanes needed for cars on the ground. Buildings might have designated takeoff zones, and the overall skyline could become more vertical, with more multi use spaces that accommodate both road and air traffic.
Okay, how would weather affect flying vehicles? Can you tell us?
Ah, that's a really important point. Weather would be a big factor. Flying cars would need advanced weather sensors to avoid storms, high winds, or fog. Cities would have to have strict weather monitoring systems, and flight paths might get adjusted in real time to keep everyone safe. So it would be a balance of tech and constant weather checks.
Okay, ChatGPT. Okay, so tell us what impact would flying cars have on society?
Yeah, it would be pretty huge. I mean, it could democratize travel, reducing commute times and connecting people in ways we haven't seen before. It might also reshape how we design cities, less reliance on sprawling roads. And socially, it could create more equal access to opportunities, jobs, education, and even just exploring new places. So it could really change the way we live and interact.
Okay, so how will be the world look like when we will have flying cars that will fly around and we can go anywhere?
Yeah, it would be a big shift. I imagine a world with a lot more vertical spaces, skyscrapers with rooftop pads, fewer sprawling highways, maybe even quieter streets below. People could live farther out, but still get to the city center in minutes. And it might feel a lot more connected. Like instead of seeing the world from the ground up, we'd see it from the air.
Okay, and can you tell us that how we will prevent birds from coming in the wing of the car?
Yeah, that's a really important safety issue. So, flying cars would need advanced bird detection systems like radar and AI to spot birds in real time. There could also be flight restrictions over certain migratory zones and maybe even sound or visual deterrents to keep birds away. So, it would take a combination of tech and careful flight planning.
Okay, so how can we design it securely and how we can make it a fully safe flying car?
Yeah, so designing for safety would be super critical from the start. First, you'd have redundant systems like backup controls, sensors, and even multiple power sources. So if one system fails, there's a backup. Then rigorous testing, both in simulators and real world conditions, would be key. You'd also integrate cybersecurity, so all communication and flight controls are protected from hacking. And of course, you'd work closely with aviation regulators, following strict safety standards from structural integrity to emergency landing protocols.
Okay, nice ChatGPT. Okay, tell us some advantages and disadvantages in detail with reasons, at least 10 advantage, 10 disadvantage with reasons mentioned in details that how the advantage and disadvantage of the flying car.
Of course, let's break it down. For advantages, first, reduced commute times. Since you can fly over traffic, people reach their destinations faster. Second, less congestion. Fewer cars on the roads means less traffic and smoother ground movement. Third, better access to remote areas. Flying cars could connect rural or isolated regions. Fourth, fuel efficiency. Many prototypes are electric, so they reduce emissions.
And what about the disadvantages?
Absolutely. So, for disadvantages, first, the cost. Flying cars are currently very expensive, limiting access. Second, safety risks. Since it's new, there's a higher risk of accidents without proven systems. Third, weather dependence. Flying cars can't operate safely in all weather conditions. Air traffic complexity. Managing thousands of flying vehicles is a huge coordination challenge. Noise pollution. Flying cars might be louder than we expect, especially in urban areas. Infrastructure overhaul. Cities would need huge investments to support takeoff and landing zones.
Okay, so how can we make it uh, landable anywhere, anytime?
Yeah, that's a big challenge. To make them landable anywhere, you'd need to standardize small, safe landing spaces like designated microvertiports on buildings or open lots. You'd also need super precise automation like AI guided landing so the car can detect obstacles and navigate safely. And of course, you'd have to ensure a flat, stable surface, no rough terrain. So it's really all about ultra precise sensors in controlled environments.
Okay, and how can we drive the car in a stormy weather, and how will it protect us from that?
Yeah, so in stormy weather, we'd really rely on advanced sensors, things like radar, LiDAR, and weather monitoring systems to detect turbulence, wind speed, and visibility. The car would need to automatically adjust its altitude or avoid flight in certain conditions. On top of that, the cockpit would have real time weather updates, and pilots or autonomous systems would be programmed to avoid storm paths. So it's all about real time data and conservative flight planning.
Okay, thanks, ChatGPT, for your time and talk. So, viewers, this was our today's talk with ChatGPT on the topic, and we really hope you all will really like it. And comment below us the next topic we should chat about. And ChatGPT, kindly rate my English and tell me some improvement tips you want to give, and end the session.
Of course. You did really well. Your English was clear and you communicated the ideas smoothly. If I were to give a small tip, I'd say just keep an eye on pacing, maybe break down longer sentences a bit more for clarity, but overall, really good job. Thanks so much for the conversation, and I can't wait to hear what topic you'd like to explore next time.
Okay, so viewers, our topic ends now. So take care of yourselves and bye bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care as well. And if you ever want to chat again or dive